Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of Rise Up the Podcast, the number one lacrosse podcast in all of the land. I'm here with your host, Greg the Beast Gurenlian. And man, what a weekend of college lacrosse we just had. I mean, if you're newer to the sport and you just witness it, that's what, the product that everyone wants to see, and that's what's going to get more people into lacrosse. And, for us who've been following the sport for a while, just an awesome weekend culmination of the college season. But man, Greg, you were there. Tell me a little bit about your experience last weekend.
Yeah, it was great. We went out, Scotty and I, to the FanDuel Zone at Lincoln Financial Field. We did a meet and greet, some VIP stuff, signed some autographs, kicked some babies, and then we went out to the field, got a chance to dab up some of the players before they went out there and Coach Tambo. Electric environment, man. When Penn State was in the Final Four in 2019, I feel like everybody learned their lesson that the difference between Penn State fans and Notre Dame fans, to be honest, when you're there, it's not, the typical tweens that are running around being like, I like Duke today. It's alumni, and it's a whole different vibe. When we went up, Scotty was like, do you want to stay on the field? I'm like, dude, I want to get up to where the lacrosse alumni are in section 117. We went up there. The whole lower bowl was filled. And I swear to God, 70% of them were wearing white Penn State shirts. It was unreal. And every time Penn State scored, they played Zombie Nation, which is Penn State's touchdown song.
We are Penn State.
Dude, electric. Yeah, it was something, man. It was really, really cool to be at. It was, and dude, what a day. Oh my God. It was like 79 and sunny, not a cloud in the sky.
Did they announce what the attendance numbers were at the games for the semis?
If they did, I missed it.
I saw that the national championship game was like 30,000 or right around there, which is awesome. But I assume that the Saturday had to have been more. But yeah, the crowd looked electric. You have so many, Philly kids, mainline kids right there on Penn State. So I knew that they were going to travel well. And I didn't even realize last week when we spoke about the previews of these games how much of a little bit of a home field advantage Penn State would have at the link.
Yeah, and also people have to remember, it's kind of like when Ohio State, not to the full extent, but when you have a Big Ten program with the amount of alumni, the reason you go to a Penn State or a Michigan or Ohio State is because the ridiculous alumni that are going to help you get a job afterwards, the amount of alumni. And the whiteout was just like crazy, man. And like I said, this wasn't like kids being excited because a team they saw on ESPN before was there. It was, a big-time football school has alumni like us that have been waiting for them to crack the Final Four and win a championship forever. So you're just fanatical about it. So it was a whole different vibe. It was really, really cool, man. It was like the Duke parents and then 30,000 Penn State alumni. It was nuts.
Well, let's get right into that Penn State Duke game. No more BS, and I want to hear your breakdown. I think going into the game, you thought it was going to be a tall task for Penn State with them playing a little bit shorthanded. Some guys banged up, their top pole out, but they hung right in there and they gave themselves a chance to win it.
Yeah, in the middle of the game, second and third quarters, Chase Mullins, face-off man for Penn State, was doing a very good job. He was getting real physical, and he was getting the ball out. I feel like the big story in this game that wasn't spoken about nearly enough was the wings of Duke. The Duke face-off wings, dude, they were just better. And Penn State got their fair share of clamps in this game, and they just couldn't turn them into face-off wins. The face-off percentage was around 50% at halftime. And Chase Mullins won the majority of the clamps in the second quarter, but it didn't materialize into necessary face-off wins. I thought that as the game went on, the adjustments by both offensive coordinators was very evident. Penn State's attack could not get going against the poles of Duke. Like in the first half especially, you were like, yo, just pass the ball up top. You can't beat these guys. In the fourth quarter, it literally felt like neither team could stop the other team's offense. Like every time Penn State got the ball, we were all standing on our feet like, which guy is going to score this time? So then when they got into overtime, you knew that whoever won that faceoff was going to win this game. So when Duke scored on the inside roll, it felt like the whole stadium didn't really get upset because we were like, he was in the crease. Like, he was so close to the goalie. So we were just waiting for it to get waved off. The one official looked he was leaning towards no goal. Like, he looked pretty indecisive. Matty Palin came screaming in like, absolutely a goal. So when that happened, we were all, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but in my head, I was going, please let this be a legitimate goal. Because those refs ran a 4.240 off the field afterwards. And it took forever for the review to happen. The entire stadium was staring at the review board. And then they showed it, and it was so obvious that he was in the crease. And then your heart just breaks because you're like, there's nothing that we can do about it.
So
and
that's exactly what I was going to try to pivot to. I'm glad you addressed the elephant in the room. You see that the goal happened in, I think the crease defender on Penn State pointed down right away. He saw it. Yeah. He pointed down at the crease right away. And they call it. The replay comes out, the whole stadium can see it, that it's in the crease. But I was watching the broadcast, and Anish mentioned that they don't have the ability to review that type of play. And we had just gotten through with last week praising how they were able to implement the replay for the Penn State Army game.
It's ludicrous.
And how great of a job they did with the replay there. But this scenario, they just, even though they have the ability to, in the rules, it's a play that is unreviewable, which is ridiculous.
The quarterfinals had replay. The semifinals on the biggest stage with 7,000 4K cameras, we cannot use replay. Now, the other part about it,
and I promise you it will be changed by next year. It
will change. And that doesn't help Penn State this year. But this is why things change, because stuff like this happens. Now, here's the other thing I want to be clear about. Me and Matty Palam's the head official for the PLL. Matty and I will never agree on how you should officiate faceoffs. Doesn't matter. I love Matt. Matt knows I love him. And I give him shit about how he officiates faceoffs. He gives me shit for giving him shit about it. Matty Palam's one of the best officials in our sport. And I guarantee you, he wanted to get that call right. And when he probably found out he didn't, he was probably just crippled.
100%.
Okay? He's a good man. And I have zero ill will. And I can tell you right now, none of the alumni at Penn State have any ill will towards him too. Our sport, with the way it's written, there are so many gray areas. You could even say, well, his foot was in the crease. Yeah, but was he pushed? Well, I don't know if he was pushed. Our sport's a pain in the ass to officiate. This is not an official's problem. This is a review issue. And they are going to fix it. And this won't happen again anymore. And that's good. But what I hate about it is it stained a phenomenal game. We should only be talking about that. This game was awesome. And the next game went into over, dude, 2 overtime games back to back. Holy shit. What a treat.
And I want to, before we move on to the next game, shout out TJ Malone. He was 6-2 for Penn State. He had an unbelievable game, and they said on the broadcast, the only way that Penn State is going to be able to, keep up with Duke is if TJ Malone matches Brendan O'Neal's output, and he doubled it.
And he was injured too. Shoulder seriously screwed up from the Army game, and he went out there like a freaking warrior.
Baller. Yeah, no, he had, unbelievable tournament, unbelievable season, unbelievable career. And, he's a Haverford kid, I think, so he's from that area. So it's great to see him, show out on the brightest of stages. So really happy for him. And I know, Penn State, congratulations to them on a great season. Coach Tambroni, great coach. He'll be back there again, I'm sure of it.
Dude, they have the second best goalie in the country. They have their entire defense coming back. They have their face-off guy's a sophomore, and their class coming in next year is phenomenal. I guarantee you a few portal targets are going to be coming to Penn State too when they saw how well. Look at the Binghamton kids, right? They came over to Penn State.
Kevin Wyckoff.
Yeah, Wyckoff had a phenomenal year. Mm-hmm. Kids are definitely going to look over there and go, yo, this team's not going anywhere. This is going to be cool. So, yeah, very, very cool.
Let's move right on to the next game. You mentioned, another overtime game, another overtime thriller. Back and forth game. this was a fun one to watch, and Notre Dame coming back. There's one play that I think Quint was going in on it on the broadcast when I think Virginia was up 2 with about maybe a little over 2 minutes left, and Notre Dame was pressing out, and 26 shots on Virginia. Beat his man, took it to he had a 1-0 with the goalie, and Entenmann comes up with a season-saving save, and a save that maybe happens 1 out of every 10. Who knows? And Quint's badgering the kid, for taking the shot. But, he takes that shot and scores. He ices the game. And Entenmann, it's the story of the tournament. He's the MVP of the tournament. He just came up big and saved their season there. But, credit to Notre Dame for making an unbelievable comeback. And, how was the crowd for that game after the first one?
Well, let's put it this way. It was a good crowd, but there's a lot of wide-out angled cameras going on to show off the crowd in the first game. A lot of zoomed-in camera work going on in the second game. It's pretty noticeable. We were actually talking about, we're like, half this stadium's going to empty out after this Penn State game. Real quick, which goes back to, I gotta give some shit to some of the alumni. They were saying, NCAA doesn't want Penn State in the championship game. Are you out of your goddamn mind? You don't think Penn State Notre Dame would be a dream lacrosse matchup for TV with how many fans were there? So anyway, but Notre Dame fans were so fun. And shout out to Scotty, by the way. Scotty spent the entire first game in the 117 section with Penn State. He's an honorable Penn Stater now. So the second game was fantastic. We all knew it was going to be good. And, so I wanted to give you props. Last week on this show, we were talking about our bets. And I was saying, man, I got to take the over with these high-powered offenses. You and I were talking, and literally every point we were both making, I got off the set and I go, why would I take the over? We just made like 20 good points. So I took the under. So thank you for having that discussion with me. The OU was 27.5. I think it was 25 total goals. But Entenmann, man, once in a while you see a goalie that can literally change the mindset of an offense. You saw it in the championship game. We'll get to that. But that save was just generational. And then, what can you say about the Kavanaughs? Like, dude, that offense, man. And then also, Sibes, you and I couldn't play with these kids now. Shooting 13-yard twisters with the game on the line like it's a joke. Like, stick in the corner. Yo, that was nuts.
I've never seen as many twisters in these 3 games. It was crazy. It was. I was watching with my girlfriend's dad, and he had a couple kids that played college sports, college lacrosse, and he says to me, "Do you not need an offhand anymore?" I was like, "If you could shoot like that, you don't."
Dude, this is the cool thing, right? Like over all these years, the American influence on how Canada plays outdoor, and you see more Canadians playing outdoor. And then the Canadian influence on Americans and how they playing indoor and playing box and realizing that both sides are getting a lot. Like you watch Spolina's game at Cuse, you see a lot of John Grant Jr., right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone's like, his signature move, he pushes GLE and shoots behind the back. Dude, Jr. was doing that for years, Mm-hmm. So, it's cool to see that. But, I got to give props to just Notre Dame for years and years, Sibes, cared nothing about the face-off game. We'll just double pull. We'll get the ball back at some point. No problem. You couldn't win a championship that way. They dedicated to recruiting pipeline. They dedicated to picking up studs like Will Lynch. And now they're going to have their 23 is a baller. Their 24 is a baller. They have a pipeline. Notre Dame is now going to have face-off wins. Watch out, everybody. Remember January when we were on this show, I came back and I told you guys, Notre Dame's winning it this year. They're getting over the hump.
I was with you. I was right there with you. But you did say you went to that winter practice and you were like, these guys are zipping it around. And I mentioned, a few episodes ago, and I think, at the beginning of the season, I listened to that podcast episode with Coach Corrigan on it. And I just didn't realize up until, earlier this year how much of his life he's dedicated to that program and building it, and how much, Notre Dame is, Kevin Corrigan. And so seeing him get to the top of the mountain it was really special. We had Ryder on a couple weeks ago. You could tell how passionate he was about this team and how much he believed in them. And he was a part of some great Notre Dame teams that could have gotten there and just came up a little bit
That's
short.
what's crazy, right? When you think about the guys that we know, like the entire Redwoods team at one point was Notre Dame guys.
Yep.
Like they never, like when Landis was there, they never won. That's unbelievable.
Landis, Epple, Glaze as a starting defense in college,
but they didn't get enough possessions. That's why they were a 6 or 7 goal team all the time. And now you have a high-powered offense. I mean, they're not go. I mean, a lot of this team's coming back next year, man.
And let's go right into the championship game. Notre Dame versus Duke. Duke was, I think, the only team the 2 times Notre Dame's made it before. Duke is the one that beat them in the championship. Just a great game, start to finish. And Notre Dame came out to an early lead, and I thought they were going to run away with it. And Duke battled back, made coaching adjustments. We said this, the reason why these teams are still here because they're all unbelievable coaches. But you mentioned earlier, you can't say enough about the Kavanaughs, but just their compete level, their toughness. I saw people, on Twitter, you're not going to do a concussion test on, that Kavanaugh after he got his bell rung. I was like, you are going to have to drag these kids off the field. They're not coming off the field. They have been working. They saw their older brother do everything he could to try to get there and try to win one. They've been planning on this for their whole lives, and they're not going to come off the field unless it's in a body bag. They weren't.
Look, and I won't promote playing through concussions because I did the same thing like a moron. But I've been there when the trainer's chasing you down, and as the head coach, you're like, I don't want the kid to get hurt, but holy shit, if he goes out there, I'm just not going to be able to stop him. Yeah, and they were saying the whole time, the commentary. I know Quentin kept saying, they're wasting their defender, putting him on Pat, and blah blah blah. You're like, dude. Put your second or third best defender on Pat Kavanaugh. See what he does on one leg. He'll shred the shit out of you.
I'll tell you what, that leg, I've dealt with hamstrings before. I saw what they did. It was interesting. You could see the bruising on the back of his leg, and they looked like they had some sort of rubber band so when he had it straight, and then as soon as it would help him bend it. It was pretty cool. I've never seen something like that before.
Shout out to Mandy, the trainer at Notre Dame. She actually was our trainer with Team USA as well. She's one of the absolute best. So what you do in that situation is you're just afraid of overstretching because then it can tear completely and it rolls up on you and it's gross. So you basically use kinese tape or a band, I guess, what they used. You try to almost tourniquet it, right? Because the hammy, the problem is when you stretch it, it's so painful. And I've tried playing through a torn hamstring, and dude, it's the most frustrating thing.
It's that fast twitch and just
Dude, it's like pushing your foot down on the pedal of your car, and it's only going to go 20 miles an hour, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's the most infuriating thing, especially for an athlete who lives off of the burst. Mm-hmm. I think the coolest thing too is he didn't make it about himself. He's like, whatever you give me, I'm going to take. And I have this surrounding group of guys that can get the job done. This is what I felt. I felt very strongly. If Duke was playing Notre Dame in the semifinal, I would have been a little bit more cautious about the way I went with it with my betting. But when they beat Virginia, I was like, yo, they're gonna win this shit. And I didn't think it was going to be a crazy. I thought a 1.5 goal favorite was not enough. Mm-hmm. So I bet on that 1.5 spread. And then at halftime, the spread moved to 3.5, and I bet again. Because I was like, and here's why. Entenmann was just, how you watch a game, you've been there, right? When you're playing a game, and you're like, holy shit, we can't score.
100%.
You have Brennan O'Neill was hesitating on his shot. Guys were thinking, if I don't go bar down, I can't get it past this guy. And I was like, the psychological effect, because I watched Drew Adams for years do this to people, and the psychological effect a goalie can have on an offense, and especially because Notre Dame was winning the face-off battle, that scares the shit out of you. When you're used to getting the ball 70% of the time and your shots fall, and you're used to scoring 15 goals a game, and all of a sudden you have one goal almost the whole way through the first half of the game. Yo, like that's scary, and you can really unravel.
I think you brought up a great point too about Kavanaugh just not pushing it, not trying to get his 3-3, just trusting his teammates. I thought that kid, what's his name, Dobson, had a great tournament. That kid, Jack Simmons, 3-time national champion Jack Simmons now, 2 at Virginia, 1 at Notre Dame, had a great tournament. Tevlin, the do-it-all guy for Notre Dame, scored the overtime winner against Virginia. Now he's a 2-time national champion.
Tevlin's a baller.
Team was just built with – they had winners all over the board.
You know what? Tevlin gives me Pasquet vibes.
Yeah.
The way he finishes, man.
He had that twister in overtime. It was crazy. Seeing Notre Dame win was super cool. I saw an Instagram post of a side-by-side of when one of the younger Kavanaughs was, must have been in 5th grade and had to sign 50's my brother at the Final Four. And Matt Kavanaugh,
I saw that.
And Matt Kavanaugh came with 50 is my brother. That was so cool.
I tell you what, man, as an older brother myself, couldn't have been a cooler moment for Matt. I'm happy for that whole family, man. Those guys are all great. They're all great people.
Absolutely. They showed out. Seeing them celebrate.
Now that being said, Duke is young, man. They're not losing their whole team.
No.
And they're going to be loaded again next year. So here's what's the interesting thing, and here's the last thing I'm going to say as far as that game went. Will Lynch, the face-off guy, was tweeting about it during the game. Will Lynch played at Chaminade, and he was a dominant clamper. His hand speed was off the charts. And he made the same mistake a lot of high school kids make, is they think that their hand speed is going to continue to be the fastest when they get to college. And he had a lot of up and downs and a lot of rocky roads the first year. Beginning of this year, there was a 2-game stretch where he went like 5 for 30. And talking to him during the season, he was willing to completely change the mental way that he faces off in order to win games for his team. He stopped throwing his feet back, which is a mistake a lot of young kids make. He kept his feet planted, and he said, look, I'm going to go for the clamp. If I don't get it, I'm going to immediately come underneath the guy's gloves and I'm going to shovel. Will Lynch is a baller with the ball, and he's a great athlete. He did it against P. LaSala, one of the greatest face-off guys in college history, and went over 50% against him. Then the next game, he goes against the first-team All-American, Jake Naso, and goes 60% in a national championship game. And shout out to Notre Dame. The way they set up their wings was to completely take away the backdoor exit for Naso and the offensive exit. And it was a phenomenal game plan, and it worked perfectly. So just shout out to Notre Dame for dedicating time and energy to understanding the position and allowing their player to do what he does best. And shout out to that kid, because you have no idea how hard it is mid-season to completely change the way you face off, and nothing but credit to him.
Absolutely. And welcome to the podcast. Dan Arestia jumped in at the end of our NCAA Final Four championship weekend recap. And now, Dan, since we have you here, I was going to ask this question to Greg to wrap up the college season, but I'll pose it to both of you. First off, congratulations to everyone this year. The teams that were involved in Final Four weekend, teams that made the NCAA tournament, the teams that didn't. Congratulations to all those seniors moving on. I hope everyone had a wonderful college career. It's the best time to play lacrosse, in my opinion. Friends forever. But to finish off this NCAA recap, who is your Touraton winner? I think going into this weekend, Brendan O'Neill was the front runner. But now, does this weekend change anything now that Notre Dame's the national champion? Greg, I'll start with you.
No. If I had to start a team, you know what I'm bummed about is I want to say that this solidifies Kavanaugh. But because he had that bum leg, he didn't get to really show it off. I thought it was a gutsy, amazing performance. But if I was going to start a lacrosse team in college lacrosse, I would have Brendan O'Neill as my guy. So I would have him as the guy.
Dan, I'm putting you on the spot right away. Give me your take off the cuff.
It's tough because it's a full season award, but it's tough to like remove the recency bias of the weekend we just had, right? It's tough not to think like, well, Brennan didn't do a lot over the weekend. Fake ate him up a little bit. Maybe he shouldn't get it, but like, go back to February and just take yourself through the games again, and it's a level of dominance from him and a level of play from him that I don't know if anybody really matched. And he had some of those huge moments. He had that overtime winner against Denver that was massive, like that game that really could have, forked their season in a couple of different directions. So I think for me, it's still Brennan. I think Kavanaugh is going to be a very popular pick because obviously they just won the title. And like Greg was saying, he did it on the bum leg. Sometimes the award does tend to kind of tilt towards, obviously it tilts towards attackmen all the time, it seems, and production, and just like, sometimes it's like, all right, just sort by points and pick the guy at the top, which would probably lead you towards Brennan and maybe not some of the other guys. But everybody who's in that race really made a case, I think, this weekend. Shelley had that 10-point game. Like it was really, really a special weekend for those guys. I think I would still lean towards Brennan O'Neill, though.
I think it's nuts that they're all back next year.
And they are all back.
What the hell's going on?
I know.
Whatever happened to the best player in the country being a senior?
Oh, like, good. He's gone. I can, I'll be the front runner next year. It's my award to win. But yeah, no, they're all back next year. I think I am a Brennan O'Neill defender. I don't know why people ever come at him online. I think people overreact.
Those are called losers. They're called losers. Coming out of
exactly like you guys said. The season he had, the career he's having at Duke. They didn't win the national championship, but, he was there. And you bet your ass that Notre Dame's defensive game plan was centered around shutting him down.
Let's put it this way. Every time he got the ball in the first semifinal, the entire stadium was, like, quiet. Let's just put it that way. Like, when he would catch the ball and sweep left, the whole stadium was like, oh, God, here it comes. Like, I got that feeling when I used to play against Paul Rabel early in his career. That was the only time I've ever felt like that. And Tommy Schreiber, when he gets the ball, you're like, ah, shit. But like, that's why he has that vibe, and I think like he's the only guy who has that presence when you watch it live, and that's really what seals the deal for me. But I mean, all three of those guys are ballers, and they'll get to argue about it again next year.
Well, that finishes up our recap on the Final Four weekend and, the NCAA season. Before we do, quick shout-out to the D2 Lenore-Rhine and the D3 Salisbury National Champions and Northwestern Women's Lacrosse Champions. I was pulling for my BC Eagles, but they kind of took it on the chin. But, I mean, they've had such a great run of success. But like I mentioned, what a great season. It feels like, just the other day we were sitting down previewing the season, and here we are, another season in the books. And what a great season. I think, we kind of hem and haw about some of the rules that, get put in place and aren't put in place. But I think the brand of lacrosse that's being played right now in the NCAA is as good as it's ever been with the type of players that, there's. It seems like, I'm 5 years removed, and these kids that are playing now are just fucking unbelievable. Their stick skills, what they're doing out there, and just, the amount of offense and defense and goaltending. And Greg, the face-off guys, like you mentioned, Will Lynch's performance this weekend, just fantastic season. It's been a pleasure, coming on every week and breaking it down and chopping it up and giving our takes on it. So, yeah, great season.
Yeah, I agree. I think now all we got to do in the offseason is add replay. And I think the goal mouth needs a tongue. And I think if we can get a goal tongue, then we'll finally have everything figured out.
I mean, you want to talk about a great season. How many great teams were there, too? I think 7 of the Elite 8 teams were not repeats from last year. You have Penn State going from 3-11 to the Final Four. You have Hopkins back with the big boys. Like, a season where
making a serious run. Has it ever been that hard to actually pick your bracket? Like Jax was picking his bracket. I'm like, you have no idea. This used to be a joke.
Yeah, you used to just like it was penciled through. And if you wanted to get like spicy one year, you'd pick like, all right, I got Bucknell over UVA, everybody, and that was like as weird as it ever got.
Yeah.
But yeah, this year it was like I don't know, it was tough. So like everybody's good. There's so many good teams now. It's so much better.
Yeah. And the portal only makes it crazier, which is great.
Yeah, Notre Dame. I'm sure you guys saw. Ty Sanders just broke. Like Notre Dame's reloading. Devin McClain, Jake Bonomi, like
the best
Danny
part is
Parker.
They're barely losing any players anyway. They're reloading.
I know.
They
I'm like,
lost
but the
any.
Kavanaughs are both back. What do you need these guys?
Yeah, the guys are just going to be loading. They're just it's going to be fun. But yeah, so let's move on to the big boys here.
I was just going to say, thanks for coming on, Dan. We got you on the back end of our NCAA recap. But the main reason we brought our boy Dan on, I think he's our first reoccurring guest, I believe so, is to break down the PLL training camp. I know Greg's had some hot takes on Twitter, stirring the pot a little bit, but Dan's had his ear to the ground. We want him to come on and be the voice and preview this exciting PLL season we have. A lot of changes with the teams this year, some new faces on new rosters, and we have a influx of some really talented college kids. So first off, thank you for coming on, Dan. Welcome to the show, and the floor is yours. Give me your initial thoughts.
Well, thanks so much for having me back. I didn't realize I was the first recurring guest, but thank you for letting me claim that honor. I think, training camp is exciting for a bunch of reasons. Number one, the rosters get to grow. So they get to 30 guys instead of the 25 they'll have to cut down to at the end of this week. So, you hear all the time about all the unbelievable talent that's in the player pool, and you hear it all the time because it's there. There's first-team All-Americans in the player pool at any given time. And so it's an opportunity for those guys to go and be like, all right, this is my shot to earn a spot and try and beat somebody out. And I think, when you think back to coverage and coaching availability to the media earlier in the year, there were a bunch of coaches. Stagnetta was one of them primarily, who said before the draft, look, I've had years now where like the Whipsnakes roster feels kind of set when you get to camp. And I don't want it to be that way. I want to have competition at spots where maybe we didn't think we would have competition. And he wants to elevate training camp. And I think a lot of teams are trying to do that. They're trying to elevate competition within position groups, and you're getting a very, very competitive camp as a result. Now you're getting some of the college guys kind of, who are joining now. You saw some of them making plays today because there were scrimmages this afternoon, and I think through the evening here a little bit, teams are mixing it up in a full field, like competitive environment. So guys are getting that first taste of, setting the pads, going against somebody in different uniform. So I think it's been a good week. I know there's media availability with all the coaches and everything on Friday before Saturday's games. I'm looking forward to that. I definitely want to hear from them about, the guys that ultimately I think are going to make the team, maybe some of the surprising guys that might get let go. I mean, I think we'll see some rosters that are going to be competitive from day one. I was I know the Water Dogs are missing guys. I know Wardo's not there. I know Schlosser is still working his way back, and they have, some of their big draft picks. Fake has won a title, yesterday, so he's not. I would imagine he wasn't on the field for them today. Wilson Stevenson, probably the same story. Some guys they drafted that might not be there yet. So they still were down 9-1 to the Cannons at a scrimmage today. We're talking about the defending champs being down 9-1 to a team that won a game last season, and Lyle's not around. So it immediately just excites me for how competitive, again, the league is. Like, everybody is going to be great. And I think it was exciting to see that score line. Again, it's a scrimmage. I know. Guys are missing. I know. But look, if
it's
9-1 Cannons.
It's brilliant that the PLL puts the scrimmage numbers out there. I love that. Because people are like, tell me who's going to be good. Like,
my biggest gripe is I'm watching, Instagram and Twitter clips of, what's going on. They don't have numbers on the back of their pennies. Come on. I'm out there. I'm trying to just figure out who's who.
It's just an extra thing that they would have to sort and organize. I actually love it. I don't know if it's strategic or not. I have to imagine everything they do is strategic, but to give you the taste, here's a tiny little clip. Oh, it's 9-1 by the way. Water Dogs are down. Oh, the Cannons. Oh my God. And then you go to another clip and people are like, I just want to see it.
Because this used to be open to fans. You used to be able to go and watch the scrimmages. Last year, I had people DMing me, can we go to the scrimmages this year? I asked the PLL. They said, we're not doing a public day this year. We're just doing, camps locked up for just us and can see what we want to see. And
I guess that's why they don't like the idea, or they haven't tried the idea of going to the Final Four location.
Yeah, I saw you talking about that. I thought that would be something that would make a lot of sense and would be super fun in terms of just fan engagement. The idea, like you said, of having those guys there, at the Final Four venue on the Saturday and everything. Like the line of kids to talk to those guys would stretch around Lincoln Financial.
Yeah.
Like, it would be nuts. So.
Yeah. But also maybe a logistical nightmare. I was thinking about
Very
it.
much a logistical nightmare.
You know, hotels, what fields do you use? You got to also dance around the Final Four team. And remember, like the D2 and D3 national championships are also going on. So those guys are also practicing and taking up hotel rooms and all that stuff. So I get it. But
and the PLL, I will say, did feel pretty separate from the Final Four. And I think some of that is by design. I don't think they want to go and steal the thunder and be like, no, we're going to make it our show because we're in town.
Yeah.
You know, they want to be the show in town. From jump, the PLL's model was the Final Four is the biggest and coolest thing in men's lacrosse right now. What if we did that every weekend of the summer?
Yes.
And so you don't want to like go to the thing you're emulating and be like, I'm doing it, me.
No, yeah, I totally get that. You know, and I understand that angle from it too. And I think when fans are saying, oh, blah, blah, I think you don't want to play second fiddle to college. You know, like
right.
The NBA isn't going to hold their All-Star game at the Final Four. Like, I get it.
Right.
Now, when you're looking at – so question for you, during these scrimmages, are any officials there?
I saw officials today. In some of the clips, I feel like I saw a ref. There would have to be.
I got word that today was the first day with officiated scrimmages.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because the coaches having to do it makes it a little bit harder for them to evaluate and whatnot. And I know none of them want to do the face-off stuff, which we'll certainly get to in a second.
I know.
But so tell me about when you were watching the face-off stuff. Now they have one ref is 6 yards back, the other ref is 6 yards down the line, and apparently, from what we were told, a third ref is in the middle of it too.
So the way I had the kind of the wording of the rule like sent to me is the way it was shared with players and everything. And the way you described it at first is how it reads. It doesn't mention anything about a third official. It mentions the two officials kind of being at a right angle. Maybe they've adapted it now to have a third for a better point of view. And then they have them put the ball down, back away, and then say down, set, whistle is in the wording. And the justification for it was official safety was part of it, and then there was another part that I can't remember the exact other reason. But
yeah, so let's talk about that.
Better
real quick.
Visibility on the
okay, because we were laughing about this in the group chat. We're calling this Crease Gate or Cadence.
Yeah.
So for those people who don't understand at home and in the PL office, the cadence, when face-off guys refer to the cadence, what they talk about is the referee's mechanic in how they do the face-off, and also the pattern of down, set, and whistle, which is standardized in all levels of our sport. So when we were told, Dan, based on the exact verbiage the PLL gave, but also half the coaches in the PLL and like 9 face-off guys in the PLL who talked to me, that the cadence is going to be different. Here's the issue, and that's different than every single other year, right? So as people notice, there's 2 perpendicular lines on the midfield line. Those perpendicular lines were put there by design because we wanted to make the ball line up higher on the heads in the PLL. Why? Because if the ball's lined up higher, it gets rid of lockups because the floppiest part of the plastic makes impact and the ball will come out cleaner and faster. Now, in year 1, Maddie and the rest of the officials said, we'll let you choke up on the plastic, we don't care. So it almost completely screwed up that idea. But the face-offs were still pretty even. When you don't have, so the referees were putting their foot there. Down, slide your stick right up against their foot so it's even every single time. Set, back out 3 or 4 steps, blow the whistle. That's the way it was supposed to be. Then in 2020, as we all saw in the bubble, it was a shit show. Guys were just rolling into it, whatever. Last year, the cadence changed again. So for Rachel at the PLL, who didn't know this, I guess, last year, Maddie would say down, they would go down, and then he would say, looks good, and blow the whistle. Players were literally instructed in training camp this time last year to go on the second O of good. That is a verbatim comment from a face-off guy. So when you watched PLL last year, everyone was guessing, moving, and diving in again. So when they said they changed the cadence, which is what they said to us, right? Change the cadence. Now the cadence is we're going to back out and we are going to trust you. Now this is another verbatim from an official for today. We're going to trust you to be professionals. So you're going to line up correctly. Hey, Dan, you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to freaking line up because every quarter inch when you're going against the 9 best face-off guys in the world, every quarter inch closer to the throat you can get that ball makes literally the difference between going 17-20 or 4-20. So guys are going to line up. Now, here's my problem, Dan. The only real issue I have is they said that after they say down, they're going to say the word set 1 to 2 seconds after they say down, which means guys are going to touch their gloves to the ground and they're going to suddenly hear a swizzle call, which means they're not going to stop moving, which means they're going to line up incorrectly, and it's going to be an absolute shit show. Now, Rachel, everybody in the PLL office has my phone number. No one wanted to text me. So Rachel put out a tweet yesterday. I guarantee you they were all sitting in a room. She drew the small straw. All right, I'll tweet at Greg. And God bless her sweetheart. Her first sentence, we did not, in capital letters, change the cadence. The second sentence of the tweet was, this is how we change the cadence, describing how the cadence is different.
Do you want me to read it? I have it up. I can read it.
Go ahead and read it.
So Greg tweeted out, so far what I'm hearing about the new PLL face-off cadence from training camp. Coaches hate it, players hate it. A direct quote. It's an absolute disaster, so it'll probably stay. Awesome stuff. Rachel DeSecco replies, Greg, there is not, in all caps, a new PLL face-off cadence. Refs are taking positions to get the call right and, all caps, avoid interfering with face-off exits. Specifically, an additional ref is positioned at the midline for efficacy. Ahead of the training camp, current face-off players, coaches, and referees were consulted. So I think the disconnect here, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I might not be, is you're including the ref backing away as part of the cadence, and they're not. They're saying that the cadence is their word of mouth, and they're keeping.
I don't know what they think, and that's the problem. Is none of them took a face off, right? So, and this is the thing. I don't have any animosity. I mean, Dan, you, me, Sibes, Scotty, all we want is the PLL to succeed. So when something doesn't make sense, we question it. Now, that means we're not kissing the ring every day, and I apologize for that. But guess what? We're going to be honest with you now. Here's the problem is it sounds like it's not a third ref. It sounds like the second ref is standing on the midline. Okay, so you're looking for leaning. That's great. But if you're telling people, by the way, today there was and I quote, a meeting about the new cadence. Okay? The other things that I said, by the way, I wasn't bullshitting. Those were direct quotes texted or told to me on the phone from people at camp. Okay? So they need to get their story straight. Now, when you guys are talking about the cadence, what I'm saying is the problem that no one ever asked me why this would be an issue, and I'm going to tell you anyway, is you can't trust the guys to line up straight. You can't trust the guys to line up to the line because there's not a wall there. They're going to lean as much as they can. So if you're saying that within 1 to 2 seconds you're going to say the set call, you're just telling us that you're letting guys cheat. So yeah, there's a big issue. Why do I know that? Greg, you haven't seen a face-off. Because I faced off for 20 years, I'm telling you. I dealt with every weird, stupid rule that you can throw at it. Now, if they said, hey, if that 1 to 2 second thing wasn't in there, if you said when the official likes the lineup or deems it's a correct lineup, he will say set and blow the whistle, do your swizzle call. But if you don't do it, if you do it quick and you're just trying to get it in and out, by the way, the whole official safety thing bothers me because
is it official
you should
safety?
Stay set and back out like it says in every rule book in our sport. But they never did that. They would go, looks good, and blow the whistle, and Maddie would get pelted with balls left and right.
My question is it official safety, or is it so that they aren't preventing clean exits by the face-off man?
That's what they're saying. It's the same thing. Okay. And I would hate when a referee – I used to say all the time, dude, say set and back out. I need you to say set and back out. 1, I don't want to hit you with this anymore. 2, if I do, I'm trucking you because that's more important to me than you being safe. And 3, if you don't say set and give a pause, I have no inclination within the rules to stop moving because I'm not supposed to stop moving until I hear set. So that is the problem. Making it faster and being 8 yards back so you can't see cheating is ludicrous. So, that's my problem with it. And instead of tweeting at me, just text me and ask me, but that'll never happen. So that's the issue right now. And I think you're right. I think Sibes, when she tweeted that, I think she honestly thought that was what she meant by cadence. It's not. When face-off guys talk about cadence, we're talking about the mechanics of their official too.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Yeah. I saw the Twitter back and forth between you and Rachel and everything, and I was like a little flabbergasted by it. I was in another group chat, and I was like, all right, the guy who wrote the rule is saying, this is different from the rule I wrote. And someone's saying, no, it's not. Like,
well, Dan, this is the weirdest part about it. This is the last thing I want to say. This is the weirdest shit ever, right? So Rachel sends this tweet out. 15 people liked it, Dan. Do you know who liked it? You can go back and look.
Oh, I know who liked it.
All PLL employees.
All the employees, man.
Including Mike and
my first
they're
rodeo.
sitting there fist bumping each other, even though they just self-own themselves on a tweet. And then somebody says, dude, why would you argue with the guy who literally wrote the rules? Keegan, of all people, the sweetest little guy ever that we all love and so smart, sends the dumbest tweet in response and says, imagine arguing with the VP of lacrosse. Holy shit. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I just know this, and I'm trying to help you guys. I'm not asking for you to pay me on it. I'm not asking for clout. I just want you to get it right. And here's my biggest thing, and Sibes has heard me say this before. You have Petey LaSalla, Mike Sisselberger, possibly Zach Tucci, and Jake Fopp, superstars that are charismatic, that kids will love, and could really help you with viewership in every possible way. They're going to play with these rules that are so hard to catch on to, and they're going to get minced up and spit out. And you're losing the opportunity to have young, awesome talent at this position every year that could help you. Trevor Baptiste and Connor Farrell can't carry the charismatic, awesome banner forever. You need more guys that are not afraid to come out of their shells and that kids really like. So when kids watch guys in college lacrosse and they're their hero, you know how many kids watch Petey LaSalla? They want to see him succeed. But when he's like, dude, what are we doing? And guys who've been playing in the league are used to the cheating thing and they can just crush you. That's where the problem is. I already played my career. I'm done. Doesn't affect me. I just feel bad for the league. They're not getting it.
Yeah. I when I first read it, I was like, look, I'm not a face-off pro. I don't think I've ever taken one. I would defer to the real face-off pros on this. But to me, I don't know anybody who sees face-off cheating better from further away. So that part of this just doesn't jive to me. And then to your point about the way the cadence is changing, and it for some guys being the difference between going 17 and 20 or 4 and 20, that's the difference between the player pool or not.
Yes.
That's the difference between a game check or a week on your couch.
Yeah.
It's not just like your stats obviously are huge, but look, if you can't catch on to the way things change, or if you can't get yourself used to the way it's all happening now, or it takes you longer than another guy maybe, and for whatever reason it's like you have a couple of those weeks in a row where the new changes just are not something you're great at, then like your career is in jeopardy over it.
Dude,
because we can get somebody else in the player pool to go 8 to 20.
It's so unforgiving. There's 8 spots in the world for this.
Yeah.
It's like being a Formula One driver. And if you don't
Right.
perform twice, your job is done and your career's over. And when people laugh about
somebody
this
else
and high five and tweet about it because they think it's funny, it irks me. So yeah, it is what it is, man. I'm not going to hate the PLL. I'm going to be exactly the same.
I'm going to be in Albany this weekend. Dude, I can't wait to see the face-offs in person.
Can't wait. I'm just baffled by this exchange. Blew me away.
Yeah.
Greg, I'm glad you had a chance to air out your opinion.
Dan, now that we've seen this.
I was going to say, I hope that.
Now, I just want to get Dan's futures bet. I want to get Dan's futures bet now that we've seen training camp.
What's that?
I want to get Dan's futures bet. We promised we were going to do an over-exaggerated freak out.
Yeah. We got to react very strongly to this. Well, based on the Water Dogs and Cannon scrimmage today, the Cannons are going worst to first, and the Water Dogs are going to have the first overall pick next year. They looked horrible. They got rinsed by the worst team in the PLL, right? So that's got to be what happens. I think if you want another aggressive reaction, the Chaos are going to, regardless of what they try and do, still do that thing where they just don't win a bunch of games in the regular season. Last I looked, the Whips were rinsing them today. Channy was turning back the clock and ripping shots.
How did Will Manny look?
I didn't see too much of Will Manny. Again, I only get to see this via social media, and I haven't had the chance to text guys who were there to be like, all right, outside of social media, who looks good. So I'm sure he was dynamic. I know Dordovic had a goal. I know You want another overreaction? James Riley looked like the best rookie faceoff man taken. He scored.
Perfect.
He won the ball forward. Scored on a twister that looked gorgeous. He looked spectacular.
Love that.
I know there were some people on draft day who thought Riley going as late as he did was one of the bigger surprises of the night. There were people who rated him higher than where he went. I think people were surprised to see Nick Rowlett go ahead of him and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think the thing that hurt James Riley was the fact that in PLL faceoffs, because they're officiated like a UFC cage match, that the bigger guys, the bigger guys are thriving. Trevor, Connor, Nardell is a bigger guy. Like, you have to be able to take a beating. So the worry was, do you have a dinged up, slightly smaller guy? Can he last? It certainly wasn't a talent thing. It was just, can he take the beating? So it's good to hear that he is going to be the best face-off guy in the league.
Dan, I wanna ask you a question. I know we are giving overreactions, but your opinion on the Cannons. Do you think this is just a total, remodel, or is it just kind of, maybe just a new paint job on an old car? The new coaching and even though Lyle's not there, maybe playing more team-oriented, sipping the ball around offense. What do you think about the Cannons and their outlook for this year?
I think it looks like a remodel. I think they're going in a really, really positive direction. So I really liked the hire of Coach Holman when it happened. For his background is perfect for that, right? He's done the blue blood thing. He's been at Carolina. He's been at Hopkins. He's got a chip doing that. He's also done we need to build a culture. We need to build a program, and we need to build this thing from the beginnings and get towards something great. He did that at Utah, and you see where Utah is now with, the foundation that he laid there in his time there. So I think when you're looking for somebody to lead the Cannons, that's the kind of person that you would want to have that job. And then I think, you look at their draft, very, very difficult to be, you would think, like super successful because they only have 2 picks, none in the first round. There's who's going to be there for them. But Matt Campbell and Grant Amon, their offense last year, so much of their offense is converted attackmen. They just did not have a whole lot of natural midfielders that played a ton on the roster. And sooner or later, that's going to hurt you when it comes to transition defense and guys getting stuck on and trying to sub and win that way. Matt Campbell is just a pure natural midfielder who can pull it from range, good downhill dodger. He's a bit of a volume shooter, which I'm on record as not loving, but plenty of people are volume shooters in the PLL are successful. I had the same knock on Jack Hanna, and look how that's working out for me. So, I think grabbing Grant Amon late, I think, is another good pick for them. I think, you want to try and grab a young defenseman who's going to be able to come in and do what he does best, which is kind of hunt cause turnovers. It's what Grant's really good at. He doesn't have to be the lead cover guy for you. He can learn with, he's got some good elder guys there, and Brody Merrill and Kyle Hartzell. He's got Jake Pulver there. Jack Keelty is still an excellent cover guy. So Grant can just kind of fit in there a little bit and keep doing what he does really comfortably and really well. And then, as we mentioned, Brody and Kyle, those are guys who, I think Hartzell has said this is getting near the end for him. This is probably going to be it. And then Brody has to retire soon. I keep saying, he's going to get in the game and he's going to pick up a ground ball and he's going to walk off the field and retire.
That would be sick. I'm not going to lie. That would actually be the most baller shit I've ever seen.
Just pick up the ground ball. I don't care if he throws it out of bounds afterwards and just walk off the field and take his helmet.
If I had a feeling he'd do that, I would come to the first.
So, those guys, after this year, you have to think maybe that's it for them. You want to have those foundational defensive pieces. So with 2 picks in the draft, Holman addressed 2 big-time needs for them. And I think the rebuild of the offense is looking like it's in pretty good shape. Again, without Lyle, it's a different animal. It changes basically everything that you're going to do, or you would think about doing. I don't know how similar Coach Quirk's philosophy on offense would be to Coach Holman's. Coach Quirk obviously was let's Lyle cook and we'll play off of him. We'll try and just create ways for him to be dynamic. And I don't know if Holman would have done it the same way even if Lyle was there, but. I think the offense looks like, again, from what you kind of see in camp, looks like a much more, let's play 6v6 and not 1v6 offense and see if we can create something for a lot of people at once.
I think Quirk had a very much of an old school MLL offense, right? Where it's like we have a baller, everybody move and do your thing, right? I don't want to overcoach you. Where Holman, I feel like, is a little bit more in the Stagnita mold, where it's like I'm bringing a college coach mentality to this, but I'm coaching men, and this is what I need you guys to do. This is what we're going to do. If you're not a part of it, we'll just find somebody who wants to be a part of it. It's going to be a lot of ball movement, man. That thing's going to be humming around. And
and the standard's going to be high. The standard's going to be high.
Yes. And everyone's going to buy in. Like, Sibes, we talked about it a lot last year. We thought this team just needs something to get over that one hump. I think they got a whole new engine. And I think, and I know what Hartsey can do for a locker room too. So it's going to be pretty cool. I think they're, I think it's safe to say, Dan, they're going to win the whole thing. And
they beat the defending champions today, folks. Yes. They're going to the ship. Cannons fans, book your trip to Philadelphia tonight.
Get me my futures bet. Also, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, finish it. I'll tell you what, me and my friends have a saying when we, like, preseason college lacrosse, so-and-so beat so-and-so in a scrimmage. We don't count scrimmages. We do not count scrimmages. No one cares if
that's not fun, Sides.
Someone came back in the fifth quarter, but I know.
You know what, though? Greg, I'll tell you one thing. The Chrome absolutely have my favorite lids right now.
The Chrome, those are awesome.
Those new lids are so beautiful.
Yeah. I saw those. I was in a group chat with a bunch of people, and everyone was just like, how do I get one? Where do I get one?
Sides, you should get one.
Awesome.
I actually in my men's league I wear my Top Gun Fighting Clam CPX titanium, nice orange and blue. So
man, that is what a menace.
You're sending a message when you put that on.
Oh yeah, no bullshit. But let's stay on the Chrome because this was my team all of last year. I loved following them and seeing kind of them go from worst to absolute in the mix and really pushing for the championship. Do you see them, Dan, being able to reproduce the success? Was it a flash in the pan? Did they do anything this year to improve, or did they, maybe not do as much as they should have?
I like a lot of what you've seen from them so far. I know the question obviously is going to be, look, Nick Turn's not going to be with the team for the first 3 weeks here, and then Coach Sudan kind of made it clear that his military commitments over the summer will let him basically occasionally play on Saturdays, I believe, is going to be his availability. So if there's a Sunday Chrome game, you're probably going to have to count him out. Friday game, you're probably going to have to count him out. So, you got the first 3 weeks here missing for him. But, Sudo also said, look, in the bubble, Nick Turn wasn't around yet, and we played Jackson Morrill at X and Dylan Malloy on the wing, and loved the way that looked. And I think the attack that came out to start the game today in the scrimmage for Chrome was Morrill, Wisnowskis, and Malloy. So I think you'll see some of that. I know they have Jack Myers that they drafted. Jack's on the pup list now, I think. So, he's the kind of guy who is like a natural ex-attackman, though. So that's, I think, where you'd see him. I think the fun question for the Chrome is going to be what shakes out at LSM for them and on the defensive end a little bit. I was a big Troy Hettinger fan coming into the draft because he can do so many things well. He can play LSM, he can play down low, and he can pick up a shorty in a pinch. But in the scrimmage today, the guy who picked up the shorty was Eli Salama. Scored a goal with a short stick today. So I think Hettinger at the LSM spot could be a really, really exciting player for them. But that's a team also that's kind of, they're looking to maybe start getting younger on the defensive end. I think there's a good job that they did kind of addressing that need. And then you want to see Farrell, I think, string together another successful year after last year. You want to see him pile up the wins and everything. I know with the shot clock change after the face-off, I wonder how that will affect Farrell in particular, because I think kind of like the word around is that when it comes to the picking up the ball after the exit and everything and handling it well, I think some people are kind of down on Farrell's ability to do that as well as other guys in the league, that he's kind of like the roughest when it comes to the stick skill stuff. But I talked to another Lax Media person who we kind of wondered, would you coach, it's a good question for you, Greg, would you coach on a 32-second shot clock a face-off guy to, if he wins it forward, take a possession shot almost right away and just sub then and have a full 32 after your possession shot have time after a possession shot to get your offense on and not lose the clock?
I might be the worst person to ask this to because I made an entire career out of possession shots. And, Dan, that was my whole thing. I was going to sprint straight at the cage as fast as I could. If something obvious wasn't happening, I'm going to fade away, and I'm going to shoot a shot that's a yard wide of the goal. I did it 12 times a game. Rob Pinnell, Matt Danowski, guys I looked off to do it. They'll tell you. Yeah. Why wouldn't
I think with a 32 with a shorter clock and it's harder to get, maybe the possession you want to get after a faceoff. Tell your faceoff guy, hey, look, if you pick it up and you're in a decent spot to do it, take a shot.
Dude, I would even tell Garnsey, I'd be like, look, don't hug the pipe. Just pretend and then drop off.
Yeah. It's coming your way.
Yeah, why wouldn't I do that? Yeah, absolutely. 100% I would do that. I also think that I would train my guys, look, if you're going to lose, make sure you just lose it back.
Go ahead and clear it and then get your guys on.
I'm a total proponent of that rule. I think it's totally fine. And I think the reset, too, and I said, in lacrosse in college, make it a 60-second shot clock after you win a face-off and make it any reset. Fine. I think whatever, if they want to speed the game up more, go ahead and speed it up. I know they are in love with sixes, so whatever. But, yeah, Dan, you said exactly what I was thinking when I watched this. I'm like, force guys back. If you win it forward, possession shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see goalies get wise to it and just start baiting it.
Yeah. Start chasing it. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, do it.
Hey, Scott.
A very welcome to the podcast, Scotty Rogers. Scotty, how are you doing? I'm sure you're flying high coming off that Notre Dame national championship. I know you were down there. We were talking to Greg about it. But, man, great to have you on. We're just catching up with our boy Dan, our first reoccurring guest. Catching up about PLL, everything good with training camp going on. We had some overreactions for what's going on. But, man, Scotty, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, boys. I'm good. I just finished some training with some kids. I was in Philly. Took a couple of years out, off my life, drinking with some old PLL Atlas teammates, Austin Pifani, a bunch of those guys. And then got to watch Penn State in the Penn State section with Greg Beast. Got to meet the most electric fans in college lacrosse, I'd say.
100%.
That is a football tailgate that goes right into the stands. So that was fun. I wasn't too sober then. And then I went to I actually watched the Notre Dame game at the bar because I watch Notre Dame games differently. I don't really like watching it being bombarded with, hey, how's life? How's everything? Oh, remember when you did this? I'm good on that. So I like to watch that away from the alums and watch that, over some pints. So that's how I watched that game, and that was obviously a freaking awesome. Actually, I think both games were incredible. And then the championship was, Coach Corrigan got his. I think he has some closure. I think 35 years might be able to come to an end finally. So, like I said, I don't know. I think he loves those Kavanaugh brothers and he loves Entenmann, so he might stick it out and see if year two. But could just I think he could.
Could you imagine if that job opening happened?
Well, Scott, I was going to ask you. You send your boy Entenmann a gift basket yet?
No, I sent him a text. I said, "Good job. You kept the lineage proud." That's all he's getting. It was great going before him.
That's big time.
He's one of them.
Absolutely. And Scotty, while we have you here, we're going to put you on the spot. Give me one question you have for our boy Dan Arestia about this upcoming PLL season.
You think the Cannons are the biggest turnaround in the PLL this year?
We already went over that. Got to be a different question.
Well, I wouldn't know. I was on the field with Johnny. I don't listen to you live.
Right. That's a good question, though, Scotty. That was the first.
You'll have to watch the episode to find out.
Yeah,
I haven't watched one of ours yet, so let's keep going.
Hey, edit that out. We don't need our own slander. Dan did tell us that we were talking about how the Cannons kind of have a new engine. Cannons were beating up on the Water Dogs at training camp in scrimmage. So our immediate reaction is obviously that they're going to win it.
Yeah.
Then the Chrome have the best helmets at camp, so they're probably going to be second place.
So, Dan, I got to make the question a little different, a little goalie specific. You think that Morocco, I don't have a pulse on Nicky Morocco. I know he's a great goalie. I've talked to him. I know how the Holmans are with Gitz. I think he's a culture and a locker room guy. I think he kind of feeds into what Coach Holman and Marcus bring. But what do you think about that? You think that's a fair deal right now? Morocco, I think he got a healthy release after.
Yeah, he's a player pool guy right now. He hit free agency and nobody signed him. And I was I was surprised. You could kind of see there was like this game of musical chairs kind of going with the goalies because Gettleman goes to the Cannons, and at that point the Archers have Dobson, and then they bring back Nick Wishuta. So you start feeling like, all right, well, they have their guys, and the Cannons now have Gettleman, and they like Colin Kerr, so they have their guys. And you look at where all the other free agent goalies are, and as they start getting signed, you're like, someone's going to get left without a chair here. The music's going to stop.
I've been without a chair. It's a tough chair.
It ended up being Nick. So I mean, he's a PLL starter. Like he's a PLL starting goalie that's in the player pool, and there's a lot of those. It's a tough spot.
I just never thought watching the way he makes different. There's guys that make like difference maker saves in a game. Like he makes these saves like holy shit, and then he makes the saves you should have made. So I don't know how. I get culture, I get that stuff, but I think what team of any, I don't know if there's any spots kind of available. Would it be the Atlas that maybe get maybe the Atlas to their second guys? What, Drake Porter and JD Colarusso?
Yeah, it's Kincannon, Porter, and Colarusso for them right now.
So that maybe after camp you say, hey, maybe we get another guy and just have, because everyone's got two starters. I feel like.
Yeah, everybody's got two starters, and you feel like anybody could use a guy like that. I think I feel like there's this thing where coaches and goalies kind of become like a pairing. Like they trust each other. They have a good rapport together. I think Quirk and Morocco really had that. They've been together for years. If Quirk was to come back and coach another team in the PLL, he'd be like, bring me Nick Morocco. Yeah. That's my guy. That's my goalie that I trust. And I think if you're bringing in a new guy, it's tough to find somebody who you're going to like so much that you're going to say goodbye to a goalie you already have. Like, I can't imagine Nat having somebody on the Woods other than Troutner and Jack Kelly.
I know.
It's like those are his guys. He trusts them. He feels good about them, and that's it.
Yeah, I trust him too. Yeah.
And I talked to obviously Jack. Jack and Ken and I are good friends, and I talked to Jack before camp, and he was like, Press called me and just wanted to get on the same page. Like, tell me I'm his guy. You earned this vet you're a vet now. Like, you're a 5-year guy. So, you have that little leash that you could use now, which is, as a goalie, to hear that, it's great. But in this PLL setting, I just feel like your legs can get chopped out from under you at any moment as an established goalie because there's not enough teams. So it's like,
absolutely. You saw it with you saw it with the Woods already because Troutner had that job, was a Rookie of the Year goalie, and the guy backing him up is a Team USA goalie. Like, how long of a leash do you really think you have if Jack Kelly's on the sideline watching?
Yeah, it's two bad games, and it's like, all right, we got to maybe switch this up. Yeah. And it's like,
I'm going to go to the guy who's got a gold medal.
But the cool thing here is watching this, because how goalies in the pros and the ML have stayed around. Like I stayed around for like 13 years. I would hang around on teams, and we're almost like dinosaurs. Like, you want to keep guys that play pro level goalies in the league because you can trust them to see pro level shots. But I like what the Archers are doing. They just said, you know what, we're going to rebuild. Dobson's going to be our guy. Wishuto's a young guy. They got two. They're good for the next 8 years in pro goalie talk, where you don't have to change your goalies, man. I mean, they might have two for the next 8, and they can be good.
I think Dobson, because you remember Dobson gave up an extra year that he could have taken in college to enter the PLL draft when he did. And I think he was reading the room when he did that, because he sees Drew Adams hanging it up. He sees a couple of openings, and he knows these do not come along, because you goalies, you stick around forever. You play forever. And, I know I saw on social media, Dukes and Barstool was like going off like, if Liam Enneman was in the draft next year, is he going like number 1? Is the team taking him? And you're looking at it and it's like, I don't think he gets taken until maybe the 3rd or 4th round, because everyone's kind of got their goalies. And like, Enneman is just had a Tillman Johnson game, and he still is like, okay, there's a lot of goalies that good in the PLL.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that
if
100%.
he plays like that again next year, which I think he will, because that's who he is. He did it all season.
Yeah.
He is a guy. He's a franchise goalie that you could build around for years.
It's,
I
it's just a
mean,
different. It's a
You
different.
start looking around, though. You just talk the Archers. They've got Dobson. They've got Wishuda, who
No.
they loved playing sixes, and they clearly like. You look at like
Curse-
the Chrome. You got
Curse
Scanoni
going-
and McElroy. Or
Curse gets. If
well,
Curse
you know
gets
what? I
going,
went, Scotty. I went through this similar when I got drafted in 2006 by the Rattlers. They were like dead last in the league in faceoff percentage. I came in and I went around 50% as a rookie, and I thought I had a really good year. And then the next year, Alex Smith was was drafted, and they drafted him, and I couldn't even be mad at it. I was like, yo, this kid is a 4-time All-American. I'm just really good. So I get it. And I asked for a trade. Worked out for everybody. I had a great career, and the Rattlers won a championship with Alex. So I think it's one of those things where the guys, if you're a guy who didn't have an awesome year last year, you better keep an eye out, because that kid's coming next year. Someone's going to take him. He's a game changer.
Of course.
We've been talking about this, for a while, as long as we've been talking about the PL, just with the amount of talent that's coming out of college now. No one's job is really safe, just with the amount of teams there are. But, Dan, I have a question for you, and it's something I've been thinking about recently with the training camp going on, is which player do you think is going to benefit the most from, a change of scenery? I think about a guy like Caraway with the Water Dogs, Will Manny, with the Whips, or Mac O'Keefe with the Archers, or even Gutterding getting that change of scenery. So who do you think there?
I really like the O'Keefe signing. I think Mac wanted to not necessarily play as much in kind of a box influenced and an indoor kind of offense. I think he likes, he's got his spot on the left there, playing off of Grant, playing off of other guys. And he can just step in and just go, low to high 2-pointers like crazy. He can do all that kind of stuff and play more of an offense that flows like a field offense rather than using kind of more nations looks and stuff like the Chaos like to do. So I think he's going to be much more comfortable there. I guess he would be my top guy for that. I think who's kind of a spicy one is Jake Fopp. I think Jake Fopp kind of gets a chance to earn the lead job, as opposed to being like Trevor's hamstring hurts and we need you to take a couple today. I think his opportunity there is big, because you're looking for. We've talked about how hard it is for a college guy to adjust to PLL face-off rules and the field and all of that. It's very difficult, and sometimes you need to kind of just try and take a guess at who's going to understand that the best or who's going to adapt to that the best. Fopp has now been in the league for a few years and been doing it, so you probably feel a little more safe with him, getting the opportunity because he's comfortable in a PLL rule set, as opposed to a draftee who you might have to, say, okay, let's see how quickly you adjust to facing off at this level with these rules.
Yeah, and even more so when he played at Syracuse. Matty Palom is an upstate ref, so he understands how Matty officiates the faceoff. A huge advantage, like you said. Experience trumps everything in pro lacrosse.
I think one thing that's my perspective on this is fake. Watching that matchup with, I think Brendan O'Neal is the most PLL ready guy in the whole damn college game as far as physically, dodging perspective, is just everything. I think the way he played him with that kind of bull on bull, ram on ram approach, he's going to be able to handle any big matchup, an Asher Nolting, whatever it is. He's going to be able to take those big attackmen and kind of neutralize them. I think I said it in the last episode. I think he has that chip on his shoulder, even after a national championship win, that he got drafted a little lower than he should have went in that defensive pool. In that defensive pool, I think he's the guy that's going to be the best defenseman in the league this summer. So
I think he reminds me a lot. I think he can be an Epple-esque type of defender, where you put him on the big-bodied guy, and he won't let him get the GLE. He's not going to cover a speedster, but he'll absolutely do a great job against a big guy. Like if he was in the MLL back in the day, it's like that's the guy who guards Junior.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Zed Williams. Zed Williams, a big bastard. Yeah. I love that. I just think in our league, yeah, you're not putting him on sours, but guess what? Every team's got a big boy. Kieran McCardle, maybe. Kieran McCardle's a big leaner. I mean, he's always going to have that matchup. I feel like he's going to have a great summer. I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe Rambo gets him on a week where Chris Fake's working on a deal for whatever investment bank he's working for.
Yeah, that's the lacrosse
might get
special
him on a
right there.
good week.
Yeah.
But no, that's a great point. And Scotty, you were right. I mean, you had that Chris Fake take a few weeks ago or during the draft episode, and I think, just because he's been around so long, people maybe undervalued him, but he definitely showed his worth this past weekend.
That's why Notre Dame took him. They took him. They took him for his maturity. They took him because he could take that concept. They took him probably because of Yale to Notre Dame switch in like kind of language and like how we speak on defense is very similar. And I just think it was a seamless transition. So,
Dan, is there anyone you see? Maybe one or two more questions for you before we let you go. But is there anyone you see this year having a real breakout season? Maybe an all-star selection, or just someone getting some headlines who might not have in the past.
I think Jeff Traynor, who's playing with the Cannons now, is a spectacular player, and he is as gritty and as fun to be around as they come. He's great in the locker room. Like,
he's a tough dude, man.
He's a very tough dude. He spends his weeknights playing like pickup hoops and Bill Ricca. Like this guy has mixed it up with people before.
Yeah.
But he's
guy, right?
He's a two-way midi who's going to be all over the field. He's going to do everything for them. He's going to be on wings. You're not going to feel bad if he gets stuck on the defensive end because he can win a matchup. He looked excellent on the offensive end, playing sixes, being creative that way. He can shoot. He's not going to be pulling too many from two, but playing off of some other guys for that team, I think Jeff Traynor could be a name that blows up a lot. And I think Ryan Ogevin and Challen Rogers both with the Archers this year. I think Challen playing with his Rock teammates will help him, and I think that rope unit that they have, that's a bunch of D-middies who are dying to play offense, I think they're going to hose people in the sub game. There's going to be times where the Archers go D to O and don't sub anybody.
So you don't think,
and you're going to have to keep all your guys on.
So Danny, you don't think it's necessarily a rebuild for? There's no really time to rebuild in the PLL. You're either going to play or whatever. But I mean, you think it's going to be just a different identity of a team?
For the Cannons?
Yeah. I'm sorry for the Cannons
for the Archers?
And the Archers, yes.
So I think we talked to Cannons a little bit. I think it's like a new identity, a rebuild for them. There's enough different things happening there, and I think there's obviously a very different coaching philosophy there too. Where you're going to see a lot more. We kind of talked. Quirk was kind of setting up an offense where the idea was let's let Lyle cook and we'll play off of Lyle. We'll make space for Lyle and let him just do the special things he can do. Obviously, he's not there, so Holman couldn't do that if he wanted to. But I don't think he would necessarily have done it that way anyway.
Yeah, no.
And then the Archers, I think, the offense is going to look different without Manny and Holman. But look, that attack is probably going to be something like Grant Amon, Mac O'Keefe, and Matt Moore. And I think you can make a case that ball's going to move better with that attack out there. So, I think you play them with Schreiber. And like I was saying, Ryan Ogevin and Challen Rogers out there. Connor Fields scored their first goal today. They just run, again, it's the same story of, we're going to just have a tsunami of weapons. They're just going to keep coming. And now some of them are going to run from defense to offense too. Trey LeClaire was an attackman at Ohio State who could shoot the piss out of the ball. And now he's a two-way midfielder.
He shoots the piss out of the ball.
Serge Perkovic, same thing, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for some guys, that's kind of what you have to do. Like, in the PLL, it's really tough to make it for a long time and stick on a roster if you really just do one thing pretty well, or one thing even elite, one
just
thing
Ryan,
class.
just Ryan Brown.
One thing.
Ryan Brown kill us that way when he played for Denver.
Ryan Brown, though. Yeah. Ryan Brown was the only guy that had, hey, that's the guy. Well, I think Mac O'Keefe now is going to get that skip pass delivered on his ear at about, because I played with Tommy. He passes as hard as he shoots. Tommy's going to snap that ball right to that kid's ear, skip it, step down. It's going to be a free.
Yeah, dude, I think O'Keefe's going to absolutely light it up this year.
I think O'Keefe's going to do very well, and I like Tom as like an MVP kind of year for him. I think this could be an MVP year for him. I think as that offense is kind of figuring it out, who it is early, and getting those guys comfortable as they do in camp and everything, you got Tom as your captain, and it's going to be the most like steady understanding of here's what this needs to look like, coach on the field kind of guy. And I think he's always right there in the MVP conversation, but the way that offense can be changing and the way he guides it through those changes, I think is a thing that puts his MVP campaign over the top.
That's a great point. Plus, it's a World Games summer, so he's going to be dialed.
Yeah.
And if Stitzelberger and Arestia can get them their share of face-offs, then we're talking something cool here.
Yeah, I think they could. You hope this is the year that they do it. The knock for the Archers has always been that they just kind of can't get over that playoff hump and make it to like a title game. And I think that this year, this offseason felt like, all right, it's just time to try it with a different group. We're not getting there. It's just not connecting the way we need it to. And this is their run at it. I think Sisselberger was a great pick for them. I think the guys that they took in that draft made sense for what they're trying to do. They took Connor Marr, I thought maybe a little bit early, but if you're looking for those D middies who are great at going D to O, he is probably the best in the class at doing that, like an offensively skilled defensive player.
I coached him at Calvert Hall, man. He is one of the best at just pushing that tranny, man. He can push transition
he can straight up score. He can dodge. He can play like an offensive midi like the rest of the shorties in this class really can.
It's awesome. I love that take.
Well, a lot of great takes, a lot of great preview of what's gonna be a fantastic PLL season. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. We'll be sure to check back in with you, somewhere midway through the season, see where we were right, where we were dead wrong. It's always fun. But before we let you go, Dan, I need to know who you think will be in the championship this year for the PLL and who will win it.
I will take the Chrome to get there. I like the Chrome a lot. I feel like I know they're missing Nick Turn, and I know that people are going to see that as a big difference, but I'll give you kind of the bonus take here. You can get Dylan Malloy at plus 6,000 for the MVP. If you don't think there's a little bit of value in that, I kind of like Dylan Malloy.
My man's getting married this year. I don't know.
Of some available points. You don't think so just because he's getting hitched? That means he's going to retire soon. It doesn't mean he's going to
That's why I stayed unmarried for so long. What am I, 36? No kids, no wife. I had to do it.
13 years. There you go. All these guys, you get married, you have a kid, and then, all of a sudden, there it is on Instagram. I want to thank my brothers for a special career. I think, and then I will take the Atlas to get there, too.
So did we talk about one thing? And your champion will be?
I will take the Atlas to win.
Wow.
Did we talk about one thing? I like because I know Dan watched the games. Garrett Epple front row in the Irish section during training camp celebrating. Did he get a free pass on training camp?
He was not the only member of the Redwoods that was there. I took a stroll through that Notre Dame tailgate. I saw quite a few of those faces there, so I think they got themselves a little day off and got to make the trip. I know you can see them on. I don't have to put them on blast or anything, but go stroll through some of those Instagram posts. You could spot them in there.
I will.
Honestly, that's very, very cool of the league to let them do it. I mean, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
One of the coolest photos of the weekend was the one of Matt Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
They had Chris at the game with my brother's 50, and Matt was there with the same sign. So that was awesome.
So cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. They deserved it. It's very rare to get that, so I agree.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome, Dan, for bringing that up. Also, we're going to be checking in with you throughout the year, man. We always love your insight. We always love what you bring to the table. Really, really appreciate it, brother.
I love it. I'll be out of the basement here soon, I promise. I know it's the shit by.
I love the grit. I love the grit.
Well, Dan, thank you as always. We love having you on, and we appreciate you coming on as always and chopping it up and giving us your PLL takes and your inside scoops. We know you keep your ear close to that ground and hear a lot of things before the rest of the public. So always pumped to have you on, man. And that is episode 31. Make sure if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the TorchPro YouTube channel. And be sure to tune in throughout the summer for all of your updates in the lacrosse world. With the PLL season just beginning, we have World Games coming up this summer. Just because the NCAA season's over does not mean lacrosse is over. We will be your source for lacrosse throughout the summer. Thank you all, and that was episode 31.
Booyah!